This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 4, Episode 47. My name is Tim. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we also have Hyman Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
I don't know what to say after that, you know? It's going well. It's going well. Alrighty, so yeah, let's dig in with some fact check. So I just put this in last week. We were talking about, Hyman mentioned on our Slack channel, I think, actually. I can just use that thing that Tim put up there, but I didn't remember if that was the live conversation or Slack conversation, but justwatch.com is the name of the site that if you want to find out where something is streaming in your neighborhood, you can go there and punch in your locality and then what it is you're trying to watch, and it'll tell you whether or not West Side Story is on Disney Plus or not. So what do you think, Jaime? Is West Side Story on Disney Plus for you?
Yeah, you had reminded me that was what I had said, that I was unclear where to watch, and using justwatch.com, and it seems to pick up my locale, so it knows that I'm streaming in the United States. Apparently Disney Plus, HBO Max are the place, and I guess to round it out, DirecTV and what is this here? Spectrum On Demand are the places to watch for free, such as it is on streaming for West Side Story 2021.
And just a little note here, I'm not sure if anybody's following this, but Better Call Saul Season 6 Part 2 airs July 11th, and that will be the end, I guess, the last 6 episodes of Better Call Saul. And, you know, it should dovetail nicely into Breaking Bad, I'm sure, you know, because they'll get the clipboard out in the last episode and they'll whip through all the, you know, the part where they make Darth Vader.
I was going to say, Luke and Leia are going to be born?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, obviously she's born to, what's her name? What's the name of the character in this show? Reba, the actress. Anyway.
Rhea Seehorn, right?
Rhea Seehorn.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And what's the character's name? Kim, right?
Kim. Yeah, Kim Wexford. Yeah. I still don't understand how she hasn't won an Emmy Award for that. She's so incredible on that show.
Yeah. I mean, well, have they won any Emmys for that? I mean,
I can't recall the last one. I don't even know if she's been nominated, and I find that unbelievable. It's like the first couple seasons, she was so captivating.
Yeah, but she's up against Ozarks.
Well,
right?
And she was up against Game of Thrones for a few years there and other stuff too. I mean, it's a tough fight, but damn, she's so good.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, let's move on to the headlines with Jaime Lopez Jr. going first.
Yeah, this came in, I think, the day we recorded, so it's a little older now. It didn't squeak into the news timeline, you know, when we go to the presses. But Beavis and Butthead is coming with a special movie to Paramount Plus. So Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, the sequel to Beavis and Butthead Do America from like the late 90s, I think, is coming. And they apparently get involved in some timey-wimey things where they, you know, go into space and then space stuff happens and they end up in the modern times. Let's see how they'll deal with that stuff. You guys get a chance to take a look. Yeah, is this supposed to be a lead into the new series, or what are they doing with this? Is this supposed to be like? Yeah, really unclear what they're doing there. Yeah, I'm confused. Is what I'll say, having watched it.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've never actually watched an entire or even like more than 30 seconds of Beavis and Butthead in my life. Is that like was that MTV, born out of MTV?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so I've never, probably because I've never really watched MTV back in the day either. So yeah, just never got into it. No opinion.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
I would watch this for sure. But it's only available on Paramount Plus. That's right.
Yeah. Wait, you can use justwatch.com to figure that out, right?
Well, no, I mean, they're starting to be more and more. Those South Park mini movies and stuff, it's the same thing. They are committed to expansion in Canada. If you want everything, you may have to make a choice at some point.
Well, it's interesting, yeah. Well, it's interesting that like they're reserving that stuff to them because, you know, I think I've mentioned many times on this show that television in Canada is up to the buyers kind of thing. It's the same thing with the stock you get at Walmart or at Best Buy. It's all based on what the buyers decide, you know, public wants, right? But if Paramount Plus, and well, in the same way that Disney Plus is doing the same thing, right? Because Disney is sort of setting here's the stuff worldwide, you know, You're not getting the sort of split that we get with Netflix and other, Amazons and so on and so forth. In here in Canada, we have our, government sponsored space station or whatever they call it, CTV Sci-Fi. What do you call it, Jaime? Our government hi-fi or spy?
Socialized sci-fi.
Socialized sci-fi. Yeah. So we get a lot of stuff with our cable package that you would normally get on your Hulus or your Sci-Fis or other things like that, right? So the fact that this is Paramount property, I guess they don't have to worry about who's distributing it because they're distributing it, and like Jonathan said, they're getting the money from the prescription. And by the way, what is it? Is it called Voight Plus on the boys?
Yeah.
They just dropped that in a comment or two, right?
Yeah,
trending on Voight Plus.
They have the V network too, which is the V for her. It's the women's like W,
really?
right?
V for her.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, really?
But what do you suppose the V is supposed to stand for on the boys?
I'm pretty sure violet, maybe velvet. Yeah, yeah. What was it? I was watching the other day when they used the V word, and whoever was being talked to totally misinterpreted the word because it sounds like something else.
Yeah,
violent or something like that. I don't know. Can't remember. Off to Mobius Land.
Yeah.
Poor Jared Leto.
This one I had to put in because it's just so funny. So we had talked way back in was it February, I guess, when Morbius came out and it tanked at the box office and it was panned, and and at the time, you'll recall, faithful listeners, that I had said like what a joke it is that Sony keeps pumping out these ridiculous, obscure, fourth tier Spider-Man characters and pretending we should care about them. So someone over there got the brilliant idea. Well, maybe it was just about timing. What if we just put it back in the cinemas and try again? Well, that didn't work out too well last weekend. So they put it back into the theaters and it made $85,000, which I believe was the catering bill for one day on the movie. It's ridiculous. It's so funny how bad this movie is, and no one cares except for a bunch of people at Sony who clearly lost some money on this. But the funniest follow-up to this is that I've seen a couple of rumors floating around this week. Now, admittedly, they are unsubstantiated, but there's a rumor that they're going to team up the Morbius character from this movie, the Kraven character from the Kraven the Hunter standalone movie, which I also anticipate to be terrible. And they are going to make an offer to Marvel to extend the Spider-Man character appearances in the MCU in exchange for borrowing Blade, so that Blade from the MCU can be in these movies and team up and I guess in a three-way fight with Morbius and Kraven the Hunter, which I still don't want to see. So I fail completely to understand what Sony Pictures is doing. I don't get it at all. I don't get it. All they're doing is making themselves a laughingstock at this point.
Wow.
I can't speak to the broader strategy such as it is, but the belief online for why they brought this back into theaters is that since it appeared in theaters, the "It's Morbin Time" meme has picked up a lot of steam. So since his name is, Morbius for the character, and it's a weird play on it's Morphin Time from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Apparently some guy tweeted back in November, "It's Morbin Time." And the internet picked this up, and there's go search for Morbin Time on YouTube. There's all sorts of hoax videos that claim this is where he says it in the movie. And believe me, I've seen enough of those to realize he does not say that in the movie. But yeah, that's what Sony supposedly, and nobody here actually knows, but the strong belief is that Sony picked up on, the vibe. Hey, maybe this is slowly becoming a cult classic. Let's put it back in theaters. And they were not correct. It was, in fact, not Morbin Time.
Oh, I love it when a plan fails miserably. That's awesome.
And over to Jaime, I guess, for the next story.
What it is time for is the I Am Groot animated series on Disney Plus coming in August. That is August the 10th. a series of shorts, apparently, not full-up episodes. So probably something pretty snackable like the... oh, man, what was the name of the ones?
Forky Asks a Question?
Oh, you know what? I have not seen those. What I was thinking of was the characters from Up, the old man and the dog.
Oh, yeah, Doug Days. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no. When I saw it, that's my mind immediately went to Forky Asks a Question, because the same idea, right? It's just a little 6-minute, short animated bit they put out. I think a dozen of them or 10 of them or something like that. They were great, and so were the Doug Days. They're fun little videos. Yeah. I think this will be cute. I'm again, it's a fun character. You can have a lot of fun playing with that. I'll be curious to see who's a cameo in those.
Yeah.
Especially if they can call in to do their parts. They don't have to actually show up and be filmed.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one, Jaime.
Yeah, there's a new trailer for Strange World, which is not Strange New Worlds. Keep up with me here. So Disney's Strange World is a new animated film about a family of explorers who go out there and do exploring, and wacky stuff happens on the presumed eponymous Strange World.
Lost in Space?
It does feel a lot like Lost in Space. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Family Robinson, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, well, I mean, it doesn't look bad. It looks half decent. I don't understand why you would make Lost in Space right after Lost in Space just came off the air.
Yeah, but Lost in Space is based on Swiss Family Robinson.
Yeah. So
right.
I still think the timing is confusing. Why would you do it so proximate to something that is so similar? Is this the Armageddon Deep
finished?
Impact?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it just finished last wintertime.
Done. No more Lost in Space?
Yeah. Yeah, it was 3 seasons and done. That's how they're doing that one.
Okay. Did they get to Alpha Centauri? Yes, I guess it did, right?
Did you watch the last season?
I did. I just trying to remember. It was it wasn't. It didn't stand out.
Yeah, Will Robinson and the robot saved the day at the end, and yeah, it's the whole thing. Well, I guess it's not. It's Penny saves the day in the end, but yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, it looks good, and I will consider watching it, but I'm confused.
All right. And next,
we got a couple of good trailers this week. I'll start with The Sandman. So this week is, as we talked about, I think I mentioned maybe at the end of last episode, Geeked Week from Netflix. So they were putting out announcements and stuff. There's a couple more coming up ahead in this news section. But The Sandman was kind of the big ta-da of this whole thing because, it's one of the most beloved comic properties that has never been developed as another thing. And, there's been famously multiple attempts to make it into a thing. They were going to do movies. They were going to do TV shows. They thought about doing an animated version. It's been kicked around for a long time. Again, this series debuted in the late 80s, so it's been around for a while. The trailer looks pretty cool in my estimation. I mean, it's funny because the first thing that they put out about it was a scene a few months ago. They put out a scene from the first episode, and the scene is pretty captivating. This is very much more like a trailer. It's like, quick hits, lots of, quick cuts. If you're familiar with the material, there's lots of little, glimpses of characters and cameos and stuff like that, which, will mean something to you as a person who doesn't know it. I imagine it's just, well, that's kind of weird. What did you guys make of this one?
I'm unfamiliar with the property, but the teaser here looked pretty well filmed. So I was like, oh, it's got a very distinct style to it. I didn't get much else because I didn't understand what to think.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I'm only familiar with the comic book covers. I didn't have a chance to watch this, but I've seen the books in the stores over the years. But that's all I know about it.
Yeah, I mean it's a dense piece. It's a thinky. It'll be interesting to see how much of that translates. Although again, that first scene that they took from the first episode that they aired as a little clip a few months back, that was pretty bang on word wise and very tone wise, felt exactly like it was from the book. And Neil Gaiman himself, who is of course the writer of this, is very involved in the show. So I'm hopeful. I guess I'm curious, given, Netflix isn't afraid to go for it sometimes. And I will say that to their credit, we do kind of kick Netflix, well, they're down a few times around here, but they aren't afraid to take chances sometimes. And, if they think that the best way to make this work is to do a fairly faithful adaptation, I think it could be really interesting, because it is a really beloved piece of content that's widely lauded as one of the greatest works of graphic fiction ever put to print. So there's a lot of pressure on them, but it's loaded. There's so many good castings. There's so many, interesting characters that they can explore, and it'll be fun to see what they do with this. But I'm excited about this one. It says it's coming on August the 5th. That was the other thing that we didn't know before. We knew it was coming in summer, but now we know it's actually starting on August 5th. So mark your calendars.
Given that you've read the books, how do you find it looks from a graphic point of view? Like, how is it faithful to the drawings and stuff? Or
it is. Sandman is an interesting one. So very often when you get a series like The Sandman, often it will be written and drawn by a small number of people so that there's consistency. In this case, Sandman, the original series, is 75 main issues plus one special. So 76 issues in the original story. And Gaiman wrote it all, but there must have been 10 or 12 different artists. And each little sort of story arc, the different artists kind of do their own thing with it. And that's the hardest part to capture. So it would be hard to say that it looks faithfully like those things, but I think you can still capture an overall mood if you're consistent. It'll be interesting to see if they do subsequent seasons, if they do play with lighting, play with makeup, try and do things a little differently to sort of differentiate, or if it'll just be across the board. But that one scene that they did show, where you see the cult members gathering together to try and capture Death and accidentally capturing Dream, it's like some of it is word for word from the book, and like its sets look very much the same. Like it's pretty impressively faithful so far.
Cool. All right.
Next trailer we got was the Black Adam trailer. Now, this was not a Netflix piece. This is another Warner Brothers kick at trying to do a superhero story. And this is the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam. Black Adam, for people who are not as familiar with as we start digging deeper into the obscurity of DC Comics characters, Black Adam is a sort of an anti-hero. He is, somebody who, fights for his own sort of sense of justice, kind of Punisher-y. He has a code, and he's sort of willing to do whatever it takes to sort of, do what he thinks is right, but what he thinks is right is not necessarily what other people would think is right. And of course, he's massively powerful. Picture basically a meaner version of Shazam. So, right, yeah. And from the comics, famously is a counterpart, a foe for Shazam. I imagine that part of this will be to set up a Shazam Black Adam conflict down the road, since there is a Shazam 2 coming in the not distant future. I gotta be honest. I will watch this for sure. I will not go and see this in the theater, but I will watch this for sure, just because while I do not give a rat's backside about Black Adam as a character, the characters he's fighting against that we see in this trailer are the Justice Society of America, which we've never seen done well in live action. It's been done in small scale in some shows, but Dr. Fate, Hawkman, and I thought I saw Atom Smasher in the trailer there. So some interesting characters that have not really been given their full due in live action, and certainly not in cinematic action. So I would like to see some of that stuff. Pierce Brosnan's playing Dr. Fate. That's kind of neat, but not enough to get me to go to sit in a movie theater and watch this and pay for it beyond what I pay for my streaming services. So
are you guys make DC characters, or
what's that? Yeah, these are all DC. Yeah, these are all DC Comics characters. So Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman universe. But yeah, I have a tough time getting excited about going and
Anything DC, yeah.
paying money to see this. You guys?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Hawkman, obviously, from reading comics back in the day and TV shows and stuff like that. So I'm probably familiar with some of the characters. But I mean, I guess there's no way in the trailer to make connection between Black Adam and Shazam, like you said, right? So, and Shazam, I kind of knew the story. I knew the story of Shazam, back in the day, just sort of the kid that says Shazam and turns into the superhero. But that's as far as it went until, of course, the movie came out and we got to see. It was sort of big with a cape, Yeah, and
I got to be honest, I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was great. I like that one for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Tom Hanks in Big, but with a cape.
Yep, 100%.
All right.
Jaime, did this entice you in any way? Are you excited for this?
I'm excited to see it, but my desire about seeing it in the theater or not is still tempered by COVID stuff going on in the US. So it's hard for me to say, come October, will I feel comfortable? Will I want to see this one? I'm probably more interested in seeing it than you are, I think. I enjoy The Rock's movies in general. I kind of know what I'm getting in for. And having enjoyed the Shazam movie and what I see here, I'm like, yeah, seems good. It seems like a fun one to watch, but I would love to have a streaming option just to feel better about it too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm going to wait for the airplane ride or something before I watch this one.
Yeah, maybe.
Over to you, Jaime.
Yeah, not much information here, but apparently Netflix is getting an animated Ghostbusters show from the folks who made Ghostbusters Afterlife. So I'm interested in
similar to the cartoon that they used to have on Saturday mornings, kind of deal, right?
Will it be known as The Real Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I kind of wonder about that too, and you would kind of hope that why not resurrect the animation style and have the exact character models. I don't know where the voice actors are at the moment. Hopefully, they're all still around, but would be interesting to do that, right? Since they've done so much with the cast.
So it's been so long since I saw The Real Ghostbusters. Was it the actual people who were in the movie that did the voices in the cartoon?
No.
Okay.
No, they were decent approximations. Lorenzo Music did the voice of Peter Venkman, the same guy who did Garfield in the old cartoons.
Yeah, I think I recall you mentioning that.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they come up with.
So next is up this Marilyn Monroe thing.
Yeah, I'll read the title here because I feel like it tells you everything you need to know. It is Blonde. Everything you need to know about Netflix's new adults-only Marilyn Monroe movie, which is going to star Ana de Armas.
So how can they control that?
It is, I saw this in the article so it's let me make sure I'm careful because I think they give a difference between US versus other folks. An NC-17 rating.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we get to watch Ana de Armas play Marilyn while she has relations with actor playing John Kennedy or Joe DiMaggio or whatever else. What's the? I mean, that's an unusual direction to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like what is it? Is it like the Brown Bunny from?
Oh yeah,
20 years ago.
Well, and there's been a few movies like Henry and June. There's been a few movies that were legitimate, but also pretty explicit.
Yeah. Oh, I found the rating on the opposite end of so the film is NC-17 in the US of A, and the equivalent is an 18 rating in the United Kingdom. Don't know what Canada uses.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that there's probably either a single X or an R or something. I don't know. We'll have to address that one for next week's fact.
Don't we have a PG-17 or something like that, or
no? I don't think it's a PG-17. There might be an AA.
Pretty good 17, maybe. Pretty good 17.
Pretty good, yeah.
17-year-olds will sit through this one. Yeah.
Speaking of Netflix's Geeked Week, as I mentioned earlier, today I saw this as Geeked Week, I should say, continues. Inside Job Season 2 was announced today, and I think I mentioned that on a previous show. Inside Job is sort of a spiritual successor to Gravity Falls, a much beloved short run series on Disney. It is. It's one of my favorite Netflix shows. It's sort of very over the top. These people who work for this sort of black ops sort of wing of the government, keeping the secrets that the government wants to keep kept secret, like lizard people living among us, and all kinds of conspiratorial things that seem ridiculous but are actually true. It's such a fun series, and I'm really looking forward to that one coming back. My youngest son and I have really dug the first season, so he was just asking me a couple weeks ago. He said, when are we getting season 2? Or it's not season 2, it's season 1 part 2, I believe is how they're referring to it, but a second chunk of episodes anyways.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched that. This one where they have like the sort of war room and one of them's an alien and like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's good. It's really. I thought it was funny. I will just do some real-time follow-up and tell you that apparently the ratings in Canada are GPG 14A and 18A. 18A accompaniment is persons under the 18 years of age or younger must be accompanied by an adult.
Take your grandma.
Yeah, come on, Grandma. We're going to watch a dirty movie.
Yeah, she might.
Oh, and then there's R. R is restricted, 18 people or older. And then there's A, admittance restricted to people 18 years of older. Sole purpose of the film is the portrayal of sexually explicit activity and or explicit violence.
Really?
So perhaps it will be rated A here in Canada.
Who knows? We won't know until we see it.
Yep.
And we'll be able to unsee it. Who knows? Or do you have any?
Yeah, I know we've talked about the animatronic or stuntronic for Spider-Man that's built for the Disney California Avengers campus thing, where it's supposed to swing, like on a web rope and do flips and stuff. This is a link to blogmickey.com where somebody has an Instagram video of that device failing. And it kind of looks horrifying because it looks like a person crashes into the building. But be very clear, this is an animatronic that looks like Spider-Man. It's not a stunt actor or anything. So you can even hear the crowd is a little aghast. I think they know it's not real, but it still kind of makes you wince because it doesn't look like a machine.
Well, there was that the series a number of years back, right? It was or the play that was on Broadway very shortly. It was Turn Off the Dark, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, where like a number of performers who were doing the stunts got badly injured and had to close early. And
yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. That was where my mind went immediately with this one.
Okay, cool. So Apple's got a movie about their ports coming up?
Yes, it's all about the Apple ports. So this one seems like it's been brewing for a while. Not terribly surprising, but interesting. So Deadline reported today that Marvel Studios has hired a director to work on its Thunderbolts movie. So Jake Schreier is apparently set to direct the new film. But they haven't even announced the film yet. So it's interesting. But apparently it is going to be essentially a Suicide Squad-esque type of adventure. Now, Thunderbolts, for those who don't know, is a comic book that ran for a very long time, probably a decade and a half at least, that centered around the idea that Zemo, who you guys are both familiar with from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and of course from Captain America: Civil War, Captain America: Civil War. Zemo basically assembles a group of villains, disguises them as heroes, and then is sort of working both sides of the fence, leading this superhero team. The rumor, according to this piece, is that potential stars in this Marvel Cinematic Universe version could be Zemo, Yelena Belova, so the new Black Widow, the Taskmaster, Abomination from the Hulk movie, who we've seen teased in a couple of other trailers, the U.S. Agent, of course, John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and maybe even Winter Soldier himself, Bucky Barnes. This is it's interesting that they've gone as far as actually, according to this, hiring Schreier, who has done a bunch of other stuff. He did a movie called Paper Towns. He's done a bunch of different projects, it's interesting that he's already been hired and is go ahead and work on this thing, when Marvel's pretty famous for sort of pushing out 2-3 years down the road and telling you what they're working on. So it's interesting that this is all out there and they haven't actually announced they're doing this officially.
Cool. So it's like a Suicide Squad Marvel version? Is that the gist? I'm not familiar with the comic, but that's what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah. I guess the differentiation between Suicide Squad and this is that the Suicide Squad are criminals being criminals, doing heroic things to get their sentences cut, and if they don't do what they're told, they get killed. The Thunderbolts, the idea is that they organize themselves under Zemo, and they are portraying themselves as the good guys while really being the bad guys. So similar in that it's sort of the bad guys doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Yeah, but there's definitely a tonal similarity for sure.
I see.
But it'll be interesting. I mean, there are enough of those sort of gray area MCU characters, as I listed off some of those ones earlier. There are enough that are sort of, willing to take a life if they feel like it's necessary, and all that stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this comes together, just in the same way. I mean, we've talked about it on previous episodes, but they've been telegraphing that they're going to do a Young Avengers type project. They've been telegraphing that they're going to do a Thunderbolts kind of deal too. I think that's where the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character that we've seen show up in a couple of properties now. I think that's maybe where this is. She's leading towards Thunderbolts, but it'll be interesting to see how they bring it all together and who's involved. And but I mean, people, you guys remember the memes that were coming around about dancing Zemo, and some of these characters, like Yelena was probably the best part of the Hawkeye series. Like maybe the dog, but there's a lot of characters in here that people like too. So it kind of makes sense to give them a little more screen time since people like them.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're at the main part of the show where we talk about Star Trek, something or other, and we'll do a little bit of Obi-Wan Kenobi as well, and I think that's it, right, for today?
Well, I've got Ms. Marvel. Maybe we'll do a little high level Ms. Marvel. Little high level boys, little high level Stranger Things.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So this week we're talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I think it's episode 6, if I'm not mistaken.
6, yep.
Yeah, the title is Lift Us Up Where Suffering Cannot Reach. And I don't know that I necessarily understand the title connection. Anyway, we start off with Captain's Log, Stardate 91943, Mark 7. We're entering the Magellan system, in which Pike was apparently there 10 years ago, suffering under a pulsar, and he says that's why you will never forget that. He meets up with Uhura in the lift, and she's all sore after combat training, and he realizes, oh yeah, you're studying with Noonien Singh this week, you're doing your security rotation. And he just sort of teasingly says to her, watch out for lesson number 7, and she says, what's that? He kind of like does a zipper thing on his lips and walks out. And as she gets to the bridge, La'an is waiting for her and says, nice of you to join us. Are you well rested? And turns out that we start learning of the many lessons that we're going to learn about security. Ortega reminds her that lesson number 2 of security is there are no breaks because threats don't take breaks. So they find as they're traveling around this planet that they're doing some cartography with, they see a small shuttle that's under attack by a small combat cruiser, and they're both non-Federation, and I think the combat cruiser fires at the Enterprise, which makes them, get all upset and angry and stuff. And
and basically, does a whisper of damage too.
Yeah, like a little fly, sort of like a little fly, kind of gnatting away at them, kind of thing, right? And they. No response to hails, and so they open a channel and an open channel, and Pike tells them to stand down, and at which point the little cruiser kind of bites their ankle, and he said something about little dogs. The littlest dog is always the one that charges, and he says, let's just give them a little taste. We'll just set up the phaser. Uhura set up the phaser just for like a little tap, and as she fires, the combat cruiser turns and flies into the beam and ends up getting destroyed. So unfortunately, right? And then the shuttle, which that was being chased by this thing, communicates with the Enterprise, saying they need rescuing because they're having trouble with their shuttle, and so they beam the passengers on to the Enterprise. And of course, they go to the transporter room, and we see 3 characters beam in, and of course, one of them is Alora, who had met Lieutenant Pike back in the day, and obviously there's some flirty sort of looks at each other as they kind of smile at having seen each other.
That was a real Kirk moment there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's funny. This particular episode is very reminiscent of a original series kind of storyline in terms of where we're going to go with this, right? Anyway, so the other 2 characters are Elder Gamal and some young kid that they refer to as the first servant, and so Pike and Alora have a little flirty chat about his uniform and the fact he's captain now, and he turns to Una, who just kind of gives him that "and what's my name" look, as he can't remember Una's name, and then he eventually barks out, it says it's Una Chen Riley, which we saw her name signed last year or last week on the Scorch, which I didn't mention, but. So the elder says he needs to take the kid to sick bay, so they head down to sick bay. Meanwhile, we go over to sick bay, and Mbega is reading to his daughter again, and she gives him grief because he's rereading the same chapter he read last time. And the daughter, whose name is Rukia, he puts her, basically says you have to get back in the buffer, and I'll bring you back out when I can, kind of thing. And and he sort of says, how long have I been in here? And he doesn't answer her. Nurse Chapel pings his door and tells him that there's some patients coming and they need his attention. So meanwhile, in the ready room, Alora is explaining about this first servant child who is basically chosen at birth in a lottery. And it's their sort of their life to embody the maxim of these people, the Jalis people, and they embody science, service, and sacrifice. And the first servant was on the moon doing studies and that kind of stuff. And when they were attacked by this alien race, and she has no idea who they are, and perhaps since they're close to the servant's ascension, they were probably trying to get them for ransom, and because they know he's so valuable to them as a entity that they'll pay anything pretty much to get him back, right? So Pike says we will have to check the crash site, and she's like, oh no, don't bother with the crash site, everything's fine, there's no reason to check the crash site. And he's like, well, we have to because they fired on us, and if they fire on us, Starfleet regulation, we have to go down and check it out. And she's, well, I'm going to come down too and make sure you guys don't touch anything and whatever. So in the sick bay, the little boy, who doesn't really have a name, they just keep calling him the first servant, has signs of a head trauma on the scan that Christine Chapel is doing on him. And she's about to pull out a instrument to sort of just do some minor repairs. And the elder says, don't touch him with your crappy equipment, and it's so primitive. And so the doctor adjusts the elder takes the thing and clearly knows how to operate this primitive technology, and scans and checks his quantum bio implants. And apparently they're talking, both the kid and the doctor are talking, or the elder he's a doctor, but I'm going to refer to him as doctor, but they talk about how primitive the sick bay is and these rudimentary equipment that they have. And the little kid sort of spouts out, yes, my implants rebuild biological functions using quantum mechanics. And so they're like, ooh, quantum mechanics, oh, shiny. And they ask him if he's a doctor. He says, well, I was a doctor until I became the father of the first servant. So he's basically given up his role to basically take care of this kid. And meanwhile, Christine notices that the kid's already starting to improve on the scanner, right? So on the biobed scanner. So Mbega, of course, is like, what's this technology? Perhaps I could use it for my daughter, without, saying so much. And he sort of asks them about that. And, of course, the elder, tells them they have no disease on their planet because of this technology that they're able to use, right? So on the crash ship now, Uhura and Noonien Singh are coming in with phasers drawn, and they're looking for life signs and things like that. And Uhura goes to touch a panel, and, of course, Noonien Singh says, "You flunked lesson number 3, security. Don't touch anything. Use your tricorder, because if you touch something, like on a Klingon ship, for instance, the last thing they'll do is make the ship blow up just by you touching a panel, kind of thing." And Uhura says, "Well, there's no danger here." She uses a tricorder and finds that they've erased all the memory banks on the ship, right? So, meanwhile, Spock, who's digging through the debris, finds a skull cap looking tech, sort of a little yarmulke thing with like extra arms on it, and kind of goes and raises his eyebrow and that kind of stuff. Alora comes in, and she's with Pike, and she digs around. She finds a coin, and she explains that this coin is an oath coin that they give to the guards to protect, who give their lives to protect the first servant. And she's curious now as to why they would find one of these coins on the ship, and she and Pike discuss, going and questioning the guards. She suspects one of her guards is involved in the kidnapping plot, right? So, of course, he's like, "Well, you can hang around here as long as you like." And she's like, No, we have to get back to the planet to continue the ceremonies. We've got a lot of stuff to do. My schedule's full, And he goes, "Well, I'll come with you." And she says, "Well, no, foreigners aren't welcome. You can't come. It's like a whole private thing." And he goes, "Well, what about friends? Are you allowed to have friends?" And so they kind of, wink at each other and, they look at their boots and decide about how nice they'd be looking, knocking their boots together. But, so I'm using Jaime's. I've never heard that expression before, but I'm going with it. So she decides when she's down on the planet, she's going to shake the tree and see what falls out, is what Pike says, and she's going to inspect the guards and see what's going on. And as she says this, Pike unclips his phaser because he's expecting danger, Will Robinson kind of things going on, right? Spock shows up on the sick bay and shows the skull cap to the elder Gamal, and of course he's never seen this before. "I don't know where you got that from. I have no idea what that is." And Spock says, "Well, I've checked it out, and it seems to be some kind of neural dampener, and it just happens to be child size, so perhaps it was meant to be used on the youngling." And of course the doctor's, "I've never seen that before. I have no idea what you're talking about." And so the kid pipes up and starts questioning Spock because he recognizes he's the science officer, and he basically tells him his internet setup is crap.
Yeah, so it's pretty harsh.
Yeah, it's like, he questions him technology. Well, I know people that do that at my house, right? And probably at your house too, right?
I get it constantly.
So, yeah, you do. I'm sure you do. But anyway, so the network's crappy. I can't believe you're using this primitive. I was gonna, I think I may get a couple of cans and some string to rebuild your network with this biobed, and of course they tell him not to. And of course, tomorrow's a big day. We have to get ready for the big day, kind of thing. So back on the planet, Alora is telling him it's the eve of the ascension of the first servant, and and so she asks the guard. She has them all lined up, and she's going to do an inspection. And she says, I want you to renew your vows, and I want you to show me your coins. So they'll wear a coin around their neck, and of course one of the guys has a damaged coin. Of course he does, right? And sort of as soon as he realizes, or she questions him about that, he bolts and starts running, and they all chase him. And here, I'll take the shortcut, and Pike ends up knocking him down and holding his phaser on him and that kind of thing, and they surround him, and she's like, "I just want to talk. I just want to find out what's going on." And as she gets close to him, the guard pulls a knife on her and puts a knife to her neck, and glory to whoever, Planet 7 or whatever. And she does a sort of Michelle Yeoh combat move and gets out of his hold and turns around and ends up falling on top of him, and the knife ends up in the guy's heart, and he reaches over and just finishes the job, kind of thing himself, right? Meanwhile, we see Kirk, Sam Kirk, in the mess hall talking to Uhura about how difficult it is to work with La'an as Lana shows up, and of course he's like, "I gotta go out of here because I'm like averse to work and difficulty," and I figured he says pain averse, I think he says, right? So Lana explains she brings a shoebox full of floppy disks to Uhura and says, these are memory chips that I found on the ship, and I can't, I kind of took them without taking them, kind of thing, and she's like, "Isn't that against the rules?" And she's, "Well, lesson number 6 is you got to bend the rules occasionally." So she wants Uhura to decipher them and figure out what they say and that kind of stuff, right? Meanwhile, back on the sick bay, Nurse Chapel's looking at the scanner, the biobed scanner, and the kid's cured, and he's better than he was before, and can't believe what's going on here. And I think actually Mbega says, I don't know if Nurse Chapel was there, but so Mbega says, can I ask you doctor to doctor, like, suppose there was an 11-year-old kid with cellular degranulation, like, could your quantum implants fix this thing? And of course, as you do, you say, well, I'm sorry, we can't share our tech with you. That would be illegal. And so there's no way I could tell you how this would work. Meanwhile, the camera pans over to the kid, and his eyes are open. He's actually listening to this story as he hears what the elder's telling the doctor. And so back on the planet, as Jaime predicted, Alora and Pike knock boots. That's all I have to say about that. Good 10 minutes wasted knocking boots, I guess. And of course, she's the old Star Trek trope. Oh, you should stay here and be one of us, and then you can join us. And he tells her the story about how in 10 years he's going to have this accident, and there's nothing that Federation doctors can do to solve it, and I'm just going to be really bad. And she's like, well, you should totally come here. Our doctors have all this tech; they can fix you as long as you become one of us. As long as you join with Landru, right? You guys remember Landru, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So Uhura has found more information than the bare minimum as Lana should expect what she'd get. She's found more. She's found things about the roots of the language, and shows that there's more to it than this. And she shows seeing the report, and she says, tell me what the captain says. He says, no, this is your work. You should present it. And at which point, as we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, she says, yes, sir, to, a female saying to another female. She said, yes, sir, to the senior officer. And which, of course, comes from which makes total sense, because back in the early Star Trek, you referred to the senior officer as sir, as opposed to ma'am or whatever. And Mega comes into sickbay now, and he hears kids playing. Of course, guess who those kids are, right? And so he finds that the first servant has figured out how to get her out of the buffer, and they're playing. He's made a hopscotch game for her to play, and so Mbega's like, you got to get back in bed, and he picks her back up and puts her in bed, and basically sends her back into the buffer for another chill session. And the kid talks about how he asks her how he figured out how to get her out of the buffer, and he's like, well, I checked all your computers, I couldn't find anybody that of that description, so I sort of figured it out and figured this is where I would put you if I wanted to hide, kind of thing, right? And which I guess now that I think about it, they have to that comes up later in the show, in the episode as well. So Uhura has or number one, and Uhura get Pike to beam up, and he's like, "What's so important that I had to stop my boot knocking to come up here and look at this message? What could you tell me?" And of course, they wanted to tell him in private without Alana around. And basically, they find that based on the roots of what they found, the language is the same as the Majalis, and in fact that these people are descendant from them. So, and the sort of question is, why would you leave such a paradise as Majalis to go off and live on this I think they called it Prospect 7 was the planet that these people are coming from, right? Yeah, why would they leave paradise? Anyway, so meanwhile, Elder and the kid have left the sick bay, and now they're actually standing in the transporter, and of course, Captain gets called down to the transporter room, and as they were arguing, somebody beams both of them off, and he's like, "Get them back, Kyle!" And so, because it wasn't Kyle that did it, so Kyle does some fancy smancy stuff, and he ends up bringing back just the Elder, and the kid is missing, and they presumably on the other ship, which again is not one of these baby combat cruisers, little Fisher Price cruiser, I guess. And it's trying to go to warp, and of course, so Pike says, "Throw a tractor beam on them, prevent them from going to warp," kind of thing. And meanwhile, the ship, even though it's in a being held in place, tries to go to warp anyway. And so as he says, "Well, you got to let him go. We can't hurt the kid." And so they let the ship go. And as they do, as he disengages, the command he gives them, the cruiser ends up blowing up because it's going to warp and it's being held back and kind of thing, right? And so, of course, now he's got to explain to Alora, and she's pissed because, you were going to protect them, and now our lives are ruined, and we're going to fall into the sea or fall into the lava. Because actually, the people, again, I don't know how people evolve in these kind of situations, but, the planet is floating above the lava fields.
It's Cloud City, basically.
Yeah, Cloud City, exactly.
That's the title, Tim. I was waiting for you to get to this point to say that's where the title comes from, and it comes together at the end.
Oh, lift us up where suffering cannot reach. Okay. Oh, I get it. Okay, yeah. All right. So, so Laura's pissed, you said he was safe, and our world is over, we're going to fall into the lava, and we're going to die, and, if the first servant doesn't ascend, we'll fall to our deaths, kind of thing. And he's like, how could all this depend on the one kid? Like, don't you have another kid you could use for this or something? And so on the ship, on the bridge now, they're trying to figure out how this could have possibly happened. And Uhura sort of says, I kind of know. And she accuses Eldar, and he's like, you're delusional. It couldn't possibly be me. And she says, well, I happened to check the records, and there was a full bioscan of the kid. And of course, he's like, well, I'm his doctor. Of course, there's a full scan of him. And she says, yeah, but you also made a scan of yourself, a bioscan, scanned your biopattern. And with having the biopatterns and sending that information over to, it's like the public key, right, Jaime? If you send it over to the other ship, then they can lock onto you and beam you off. And and of course, that's lesson 7, leaves no stone unturned, as Noonien Singh is apt to tell us. So Spock calls Pike down into deck 17. He says, I found a distress signal, and he starts walking around, and he says, I was thinking about this, and the kid was telling me about how his network was so much better than my network, or his internet was better than my network. So, I checked it out. I monitored that signal, and so I found this distress signal on this channel, and he starts, he's got a scanner, a tricorder, and he walks up to these pods that are there, and he finds the kid is actually inside the pod, and so they open him up, and he's like, oh, let's go play some games and let's have some fun. And the kid's like, no, I got to get to the Ascension. It's got to happen now. And it's already started, and I'm already late. So they take him back down. And so Pike goes down to the planet with Laura, and, they go through all the ceremonies and stuff like that. And she says, well, they're so grateful to you for saving his life. You get to come and actually witness the Ascension kind of thing. And they go down into the chambers or whatever it is they're going to do. And so Pike's like saying to her, how come you didn't tell me that these people that are attacking you are actually you guys? Like, they're not a different race.
And then it takes a dark turn.
And then we see Una goes into the brig. Oh, by the way, it's the first time we've seen them use the brig. They had sent the doctor to the brig. I forgot to mention that. And, which Una's like, or not Una, but Lana's got, we get to use the brig. And so, which doesn't look anything like the original brig. I always thought the original brig was cool because it was like a room, and they just had this like light beam doorway, right?
Yeah, it felt very U.S. penitentiary-ish compared to the original series.
What, the one they had him into?
Yeah.
I just thought it was like a boardroom he was in. It wasn't really...
It was not a sexy, looking space.
Like, I don't know, that's what I mean. Like just even for the 60s tech, I mean, they even used the same thing with the Khan movie a couple of years ago, right? Where, you can't see, there's nothing you can see, but we know that there's this, impenetrable light field kind of thing that keeps them in the brigs kind of thing, right? And it's funny because, you can see through see through this thing, and so you can see the prisoners. And then of course the I think it was the Undiscovered Country where they throw Kirk and Spock and McCoy into the brig, of course, but then they can't see them through the see-through wall as Scotty helps them escape. I don't know, just whatever. But I always thought just as a concept that the brig was cool, right? So Una is questioning the doctor, and he's like, well, what did I do? What's so big? What's the big deal? Why am I in here? And she's like, well, you beamed him to off the ship, and you tampered with the transporter, which are against our rules. And also, we had this dampener that you had obviously was meant to stop the kid ascending, or that's what the doctor says. It was meant to stop the kid ascending, to basically save him. As his father, I didn't want him to go through whatever it is he's going to be going through. We still don't know, right? And so there's interference on the planet with that's affecting the transport or the communication. It's also affecting their ability to transport. So they can't get a hold of Pike, and so Una is a little annoyed that she can't tell Pike what's going on here. So meanwhile, the kid swears an oath that he's willing to give himself up and all that kind of stuff. And as he's just about to finish the sentence, he turns and he looks and he sees that they're carrying a bunch of people carrying a what do you call it when you carry a person off the ice? Stretcher. They got a stretcher, and there's obviously some matter in there under a blanket, and the kid kind of looks and kind of gets a little freaked out, and so she says, "Oh, it's okay. Let Pike have a look." And so he lifts up the blanket, and he sees like there's basically this kid that's basically fried, dead clearly, but the size of a child, right, or like a 10 or 11-year-old child, right? And so the kid they end up putting the kid in the machine, and Pike's like, WTF? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you can't do this. What are you doing to the kid? Kind of thing. Like, this is horrible. And as Jonathan said, the dark turn, right? And we're like, well, he's like the battery, man. He makes the thing work. We plug his brain into this thing, and they don't really say this is what's keeping the planet aloft or the Cloud City aloft, but that's what the implication is here, right? Is that there's something about the way this kid's brain works that and he's been trained to make this happen, right? And he's basically giving up his life, and he's giving up his life freely, she says. But again,
after being chosen in a lottery,
kid, he's an 11-year-old kid chosen in a lottery who gave himself up freely, right? Exactly. And I gotta say though, one thing I'm surprised it wasn't a woman or a girl, because for all
they seem to be intimating in this episode that it alternates, right? Because they say the next one will be a girl.
They said she did say she in later when she was explaining about it, right? Anyway, so he's like, and of course the kid gets jacked in, and the wires are all attached to his head and everything like that, and he's locked into this thing and eyes wide open like the dead kids looked, and she's like, well, you can't unplug him now. If you unplug him, you'll kill him anyway, right? So he's just he's stuck doing this thing, right? Serving the Majalis people is his destiny. Everybody loves him for this, and and he's like, well, is the kid gonna suffer? And she's like, yes.
Does it look fun?
She said, yeah, no, it doesn't look fun at all. And then she sort of says, but the kid didn't freak out at the end, he kind of just went in there willingly, right? But again, he's not. I mean, he's a smart kid, but is he really able? The question is are they abusing this child? Is this child abuse? Has he really got all the facilities to give up his life basically for this thing? Right?
No, that's why people don't get to make those kind of decisions until they're an adult.
Yeah, exactly. But the adults are making the decision for him, which is why Pike is freaking out, right? And he's trying to knock the guards over and whatever, and they end up knocking him out, and so he wakes up in her boudoir again, and they explain to him, or she explains to him about what other kids don't suffer, like who you're telling me the kids don't suffer in your federation or go hungry, She says the only difference between you and us is we don't look away. And he goes, that's it. As soon as this bus stops, I'm not your friend anymore. As soon as I get off out of here, I'm reporting this to Starfleet right away, right? So, meanwhile, this thing closes with, or almost closes. The second last scene is Mbega and Eldar are talking about how the Eldar is going to go off to Prospect 7 and join his people who are like-minded, and he says, let me ask you about that kid you were talking about earlier. He says, let me see the file. Maybe I can give you some tips on how to fix your problem. And so Mbega opens up the file, and the doctor looks at it. And we flash back to Pike, who basically a wordless scene, but he's hitting the sauce. He's can't deal with this. And he's just staring out the window and having a whiskey. And that's where the episode ends. So kind of like you're right. It kind of, I don't know. I don't know if you got the. I mean, I got the sense that this kid, had some sort of duty, and he was, he was going to be the smart leader of the planet or something like that, or he was, his IQ was augmented or something. But I didn't get the sense that he was going to be, the human battery plugged into this thing. or plugged into the computer to be the central processing unit or whatever it is, right? That keeps this thing aloft. Did you get that sense throughout the show, John? Or
Yeah.
okay,
I did not know exactly what his fate was, but it was clear by all of this that there was clearly more to what was going on.
There was a cover-up happening.
Yeah,
something was covering.
It was clear right from the beginning, from the way that people were talking and the presentation of her as this, but she had, you guys familiar with the hot crazy scale from How I Met Your Mother?
No.
So the Mendoza line, is that
the idea is no. The idea of the hot crazy scale is that a woman at a certain hotness can act a certain level of crazy because she's that hot.
Oh, she's
but you
hot.
have to be hot to be that crazy. And guys will make the decision, okay, I know she's crazy, but look how hot she is. She was well into the hot crazy scale. She seemed like a zealot, and the way she was sort of like talking, she seemed like she was a little off, clearly. But there was definitely something amiss, and it was clear that there was more to what was going on with the kid than meets the eye. I didn't realize they were going to turn him into a copper top and plug him in like the Matrix, but yeah, no.
But that's what I was saying though, is like they had those kind of tropes in the original series. Like there was the one where the woman wants to change bodies with Kirk, and so she can be the captain and he can be the woman and be subjugated. And there was other ones where Kirk was always falling in love with the female,
yeah, he was
protagonist. Yeah, and but like to the point where and he would never give up. He would never give up his first love, which was the ship, right? That was the sort of thing, the Kirk line that the ship would always win, right? All of his relationships suffered because of this. The Enterprise was his woman, right? But there was always sort of like some woman McCoy would fall in love with somebody, or even Spock sometimes. Like the one where Spock gets sprayed in the face with the flowers, and with Meredith Baxter, I think her name was, and they basically not Meredith Baxter, it was a Meredith something or other, but he falls in love with her and he can't possibly leave her. And then there was the one where he and McCoy go back in time to like 20,000 years earlier, and he devolves into an early Vulcan and falls in love with the girl and wants to kill McCoy. So there's always sort of some sort of thing that forces the one of the three characters to want to stay on the planet and become one of the people, sort of thing.
Yeah. But this, we've been talking obviously through the first now 6 episodes of this show that it is going back to episodic storytelling, and they are doing a lovely little high wire act, balancing the sort of homage to the classic Trek and also telling modern morality plays, right? Like this fits into Gene Roddenberry's sort of style of storytelling, into the classic style of storytelling, but also, this is needs of the many and the needs of the one. It ties very strongly into the overall morality of Star Trek too. Again, good episode. It wasn't nearly as fun, obviously, as last week's, and they've been pretty banging out some pretty good ones. This I wouldn't say was the best episode so far, but they are really doing a nice job with these little episodic stories.
This is interesting. Lindy Booth, who plays Laura, was in. Did you ever watch a show called The Librarians with John Larroquette?
Oh yeah.
John Larroquette and Rebecca Romaine, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't she the tough CIA lady?
I think I only watched a little bit of them, and it's only because I deeply love John Larroquette. So
here's a little factoid about Lindy Booth, and this will maybe make you interested here. April 2nd, she was born 1979 in Oakville, Ontario.
There you go. Oakville, Ontario's own.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
For those of you who don't know, Jonathan and I met each other in Oakville when that's where he lived when first met my partner. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, she's from Oakville. She probably went to like Blakelock or
79. She'd be just obviously a little younger than my brother and I, but yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She could have been one of those true Oakville people from the other side of town. Again, where we were in Oakville was not exactly the good side of the tracks.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that it was interesting that she was in The Librarians.
Yeah,
right? I knew I recognized her from something.
Yeah,
right. She's also in Dawn of the Dead, apparently.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry. Carry on.
Yep. Yeah, no, good episode. Jaime, where does this one fit in your estimation?
I don't know that it's the highest one, but it's not a slouch by any means. I did pick up pretty early on. I bet all my poker chips, like, they're definitely throwing that kid in the volcano. But I wasn't that far off. I wasn't that far off. I didn't know the specifics of, like, oh, it's actually way worse than throwing him in the volcano. He has to suffer for some, like, decade or so before the next one needs to take over. They're just burning him out. And it does have that good sort of, depending on your moral philosophy, how do you feel? It's a trolley problem, but a writ large, right? Like, do you let a very large number of indeterminate innocents suffer and you just don't know it? Or do you shove it all into one innocent and have them suffer for everybody else to live in a utopia?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, they did a little bit Captain Energy out of Pike, which was fun.
Yeah, my imagination is his hair getting taller per episode.
Yeah, it was getting tall. It's funny. Somebody pointed out the other day that they showed a side by side picture of Ensign Mount with the hair and the Christopher Pike from the Menagerie episode, right? And the question was, with all this radiation disaster stuff that he gets blasted with, how come he still has hair?
It's a fair point. I guess we don't know what kind of radiation. He's still got a little bit of a pompadour. He's still got a bit of a pompadour too, right? Yeah. So, I guess we're supposed to know that it's some kind of other radiation, not nuclear fission, or I don't know, who knows.
Yeah. And he's like, and he's all embarrassed. Oh, gee shucks, I'm the captain. For me, kind of. Yeah. There was some weird. He's a bit weird sometimes, I find. Jonathan Archer was always very stiff and buttoned down, and Kirk was a bit stiff too, but like he was always like, hey, how you doing, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, but I think we're supposed to know. I mean, they've done a really good job in the first few episodes of really just especially in those little like previously on episode things. They really are hammering in there this whole his mortality. It's the constant thread that weaves these stories together, is who he is, what he knows about himself, how he's haunted. Like, so even when he's in these moments where, he's clearly like, oh, I remember this girl I wanted to sleep with 10 years ago, and now I still want to sleep with her. It's still certainly pretty clear that, he's got this demon that is just, he cannot shake, right?
Right. And just a little aside follow-up here. Gia Sandhu, I saw a picture of her today. She was one of the co-workers in Handy Car Rental, the rental agency that Simu works for. So that's where her connection was. So we were trying to figure out where she was in Kim's Convenience, but I think she was only a few episodes. But yeah, she worked in the rental place that he worked at.
Yeah, she's beautiful. She just looks fantastic as T'Pring.
Yep. All right, so we move on to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, I might
Part
bring
4.
it.
I mean, they don't have titles; they just have numbers.
Part 4, A New Hope.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well.
It's pretty appropriate.
So last time we left Obi-Wan, he had been horrifically burned by Anakin. So he gets placed into the Bacta tank to start off this episode, and he's having some real bad dreams, nightmares. Anakin takes a similar sort of bath as well, as that seems to be his regular sort of routine. And meanwhile, Leia is prisoner of Reva from the last time I can't remember what planet they were on, but when they were trying to escape, she, pretended to be a friend, but totally took her into custody. And, eventually you do end up with Tala and Obi-Wan trying to convince another guy, Roken, as part of their little rebellious group, to help find Leia, that she is important enough, she is worth making this sacrifice, even though it's like, for what reason now? Why one person? They have to be a little dodgy about the specifics as to why it's worth putting all the effort here. And Roken mentions to us that, like, hey, like the Inquisitors, like they find people. This Jedi is bad news because they will definitely find him. They found his filthy Jedi scum wife, is what we're told, right? Even though he tried to give up that life.
Did you recognize Roken?
He looked familiar. I couldn't place it.
That is O'Shea Jackson Jr. Who is O'Shea Jackson Sr.? Ice Cube, baby.
Oh, that's
really?
why he looks so familiar. I wasn't seeing him. I haven't seen him. I've seen his father.
That's Cube's son.
That is some strong genes. From like, I've seen this dude. I'm like, oh no, I literally haven't. I have seen his father.
Did you watch Straight Outta Compton, the movie? He plays Cube in the Straight Outta Compton biopic of NWA, cool. And it's perfect because he looks so much like his dad.
Yeah. Okay, then I have seen him before. Okay, good. So I feel better about not knowing who he was, but feeling like I had recognized him.
Yeah, as soon as he popped on, I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Cool. So they come to the realization here. Look, where she's going to be taken is Fortress Inquisitorius. Yeah, Inquisitorius, and that's real bad news because that's on Mustafar, where Darth Vader's chill pad is.
Well, it's not on Mustafar. It's on a moon in the Mustafar system.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for the correction. It's like an Endor correction.
So Mustafar itself, the main planet, that's the lava planet where Obi-Wan and Anakin have their final battle. That's where Vader's castle is. But he keeps the Inquisitors nearby in the same system, but he will not let them on his planet.
There we go. So close, but not too close.
Yeah. All this stuff is tied into Jedi Fallen Order. Strangely, the backstory for a bunch of this is a video game.
Oh, cool. Well, it's good to see the world building there. In this episode, they're like, look, we can use Tala's access to help Obi-Wan, assuming she hasn't been totally blown under cover, right? She was an Imperial, so it might work. Meanwhile, you've got Reva interrogating Leia and trying to pull a bad cop, good cop move, like in a single person sort of thing of like, hey, bad things gonna happen, but good things could happen if you just help me out. Like, look, that dude's already dead. Like, who are you trying to help? You can help other people. We do very quickly end up with Tala and Obi-Wan trying to make their way, through security. Tala, even though she's hypothetically higher ranking, is told by the security guy, like, hey, you don't get admittance without clearance. And she does the thing. I was like, I hope she does this because this is always the best thing. When you're running a scam, you always act annoyed at security. It's a good trick. Like, make it feel like, are you serious, bro? Okay, let's do
you know who I am?
Exactly. Don't act nervous, act annoyed. Like, do you just waste my time or what? Do you want Vader to just choke you out like right here? Or yeah. And she does open an underwater access port so that Obi-Wan can Aquaman his way inside, right? So they weren't going to be able to get him in normal means. It was like, okay, you come in through like the dirty laundry chute or the toilet water chute, whatever that was.
Can I just interject for 1 second, Jaime? So one of the most far-fetched scenes in Star Wars history is when Qui-Gon and young Obi-Wan arrive on Naboo and they are going into the water to follow Jar Jar to go down to the Gungan city, and they're still wearing their full robes, looking Jedi robes, and you're just like, those are not swimming robes. Like, those guys would be sucked to the bottom and drown. There's no way. It's even more far-fetched here, where he's still wearing like very similar type outfit, but he's in his 50s.
Do the Jedis all have this little breathing apparatus in their pocket kind of thing?
Yeah. I found myself in that moment sort of doing one of those like, okay, like, come on. Are you force swimming? What's happening there?
This microfiber twill blend hangs heavy, but when it gets wet, it gets lighter. Yeah.
Even this, and not to step on your recap, but even when he goes inside, he's still wearing those. There's he drowns a stormtrooper. I'm like, dude, put the stormtrooper uniform on. You'll get around much easier. No, he keeps the soaking wet, heavy robes on, and like, hey, which way did he go? I don't know. Follow the puddles. Like he's he's wearing a terry cloth robe and he's walking around in this place.
Yeah, wring it out at least or something, right?
Yeah. Even Marty McFly's jacket dries itself in 2015. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. We do switch over to Reva trying to read Leia's mind, but she can't, right? Leia's a little too strong for that. So it's annoying that this child is rebuffing her. Obi-Wan is sneaking around as he is, wont to do. It's kind of a typical thing he does. Tala sort of does a bit of the same. She ends up with an extra security check because somebody realized, hey, that's like not your station. You're not supposed to be there. And she takes care of the guy, and he takes a little nap, from what I can tell in the photos there, the videography there. And, we do see more of that traditional Obi-Wan being able to sneak around when stormtroopers are suspicious. He can use the Force to make a sound appear elsewhere and make them go off somewhere. He's too sneaky for this, right? And over in the interrogation part, Reva is just like, look, they're not coming to help you, Leia. There's nothing you can do here. And Leia is sneaky. She's like, oh, okay, I'll tell you everything. But like, I need to talk to my dad because we're like all on the same side, right? And Reva's like, stupid little child, you're not sneaky enough. I know what you're trying to do there. So she has Leia put into the like torture-matic, or whatever you want to call that. I don't know what the canonical name is for this torture device they have in Star Wars.
Is this training for the New Hope when she gets put into the
it's telegraphing for sure, because the fact that Reva can't read her mind and is sort of acknowledging that that Leia is very strong of mind. It ties into, there's a line that Vader delivers, which in the moment you don't really think about, but when you add the retcon of her being Anakin's daughter, she has Force sensitivity, and in A New Hope, Vader says her resistance to the mind probe is actually quite impressive, basically.
Really? Yeah.
So this is sort of the foreshadowing of that moment where Reva's like, because we saw her in a previous episode just pull the information out of Kumail Nanjiani's character's mind, right? And the idea is that you can just pull information out of the weak-minded, but in this case, this little child is like, are we having a staring contest? Which is a nasty line from a little girl.
Yeah.
Fun times continue as Obi-Wan finds the tomb where apparently they put the dead Jedi. They don't just chop them up and call it good. They encase them in like amber, I guess. I don't know what that is.
I think we can circle back to that one, but there is a familiar face in one of those tombs, and it's really unclear. They refer to it as a tomb, but it's unclear. Are they dead? Are they alive? Are they preserved? Like, what's going on there? But yeah.
And they're all Jedi, right?
They are all Force sensitive or Jedi. One of them is clearly a Jedi that we've seen in the Clone Wars before.
And one's a youngling, right?
And there's definitely a youngling there. So he wouldn't be a Jedi, but he would be a youngling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's not a lot of time to take in the sights, though, because Obi-Wan does hear Leia's cries and needs Tala's distraction, right? So Tala goes to distract, but Reva is straight up not buying that story. And so we've got the time pressure here of like what's going to happen while Obi-Wan makes quick work of the stormtroopers and frees Leia. Tala does the like, yes, I'm in fact a spy for us. Like, I was so deep undercover that I'm like a triple agent, I think is how she went into it. I'm like, yes, when I act weird and awkward here, it's because I'm actually a spy. I figured out the network that this rebel crew is going with. So that's why I did what I did, right? He's trying to cover up here. Alarms get set off. Reva knows that Obi-Wan is here. So Tala has to like fight off the stormtroopers, make them sleep a little bit. Obi-Wan also makes some stormtroopers go to sleep. But unfortunately, the pew-pew-pews have cracked the glass on this underwater tunnel. So he has to try holding off the rushing water with the Force while Tala takes Leia to safety, and he's having to use his lightsaber to still keep fighting as best he can. Nevertheless, he does have to end up letting it go, runs away from the rushing water, makes it in time to get behind the other barrier as the Imperials end up looking not so great, like floating pickles in that tunnel of death. And they pull the 3 kids in a trench coat trick with Obi-Wan wearing this big trench coat, Imperial trench coat and uniform, and just with Leia, underneath that. And Reva calls them out, which I kind of like that they didn't get that far. She was like, dude, that's him right there, But
how they made it that far, I don't know. Like, come on. That was like the worst disguise of all time.
Yeah. Thankfully, the rebel ships come in blasting, and it causes chaos. and they do get a chance to get on board. And one of the pilots, unfortunately, of the two, Wade, unintentionally sacrifices himself to distract Reva so that she can't, do anything to the speeder. While Maya, I'm going to call her, saves Obi-Wan, Leia, and Tala. That was Maya, right? I can't remember the actress's name from Pet 15, but it definitely looked like her to me. Did you guys catch that, the actress?
Yeah, she looked familiar.
Yeah, I think it's the actress who plays Maya on.
On Pen 15, you're right. Yeah. No, good call. See, I spotted the one, you spotted the other. Good spot. Yeah.
Yeah, she just says, like, get on board or whatever the quick line is from, like, I'm getting you out of here so we can hightail it. And this seeming failure is not something that pleases Vader. He's like, you knew what the penalty was going to be. And Reva is wise enough to be like, hey, I actually let them go on purpose because I put a tracker on their ship so I can find the whole network and will eventually take out Obi-Wan and the whole thing. The fighter, rendezvous with the ship. Broken learns of Wade's sacrifice. Leia.
Well, actually, before you get too far, I just want to ask, like, wouldn't you think that, like, when do these rebel guys sort of go, should we check and see if they've let us go or have a tracker? Because also, the scene in A New Hope when Leia says, come on, they let us go. It was too easy, right? Do you think that they wouldn't check for some sort of technology or whatever chasing them?
Maybe this is what teaches Leia canonically. This is what they do.
That was my thought,
Because it's personal for her because, she ends up comforting Obi-Wan. They have sort of a bit of a moment. And we get a very strong hint that Lola, her droid, is definitely the tracker in seed. So there you go, Tim. I think canonically, she's like, obviously they let us go. This happened to be before they put it in my damn robot.
Yeah, well, they get the little Terminator red eye thing. For sure.
Yeah. So thoughts, gentlemen, on this episode?
I've seen this movie twice before. Break into Imperial stronghold, rescue the princess. It's just you're.
Well, even the rebel fighters coming in at the last minute. When all hope is lost. Yeah.
Let's blow this thing and get out of here, kid. Yeah.
And of course, one of them has to die because they came from behind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this was a little bit of an on-the-nose homage, obviously, to the future events for these characters, but
there was a lot of people on that landing pad. A lot of stormtroopers and officers just wandering around. I mean,
I love that when the fight breaks out, the stormtroopers are like wildly missing and like hitting each other, and it's just the incompetence of stormtroopers never ceases to be funny.
Yeah. Right, and it's interesting. I noticed that when Indira, the actress playing, Varma, when she shoots the stormtrooper, it's like point blank. Yeah. She's got the gun right against her chest. She's no chance of missing. Right?
Yeah. So I had mentioned that there was a Jedi that we recognized in the basement there. That was Tara Sinube, and if you look up Tara Sinube I've seen a couple people do side by sides in the last day since it was clear, because that was one of the first things people were like, who was that? Who did it? What did everybody see? I saw it and I was like, that looks like a character from Clone Wars. I couldn't have told you his name until I looked it up. And he was a character who was in multiple episodes of Clone Wars. So interesting, because it's the first time we've seen him in live action, but not exactly how we envisioned seeing him in live action as a popsicle. But do you guys think that was part of a trophy case? Or do you guys think that was in any way connected to the sort of overarching Palpatine is gathering up, people with Force blood, because you never know what you're going to need that for?
He needs them for his long life or whatever. Yeah.
Like, was this part of the long game towards him cloning himself, or was this this is the Inquisitors being monsters and putting children in amber?
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that angle, but now that you're connecting those dots, I'm like, I guess that would make sense then. Yeah. Because I had thought, coming into this not knowing a whole lot about the Inquisitors, like, they're just sickos and this is their trophy case. But having it be both a trophy case and a, longer term plan for Palpatine, like, wow, that'd be pretty brilliant.
Or, again, it could be tied into the, we're not going to kill you. We're going to, basically torture you by having you be alive. But it's sort of the trapped in carbonite kind of Han Solo. I like Captain Solo hanging on the wall over there. Ha 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 ha. They're basically capturing these Force sensitives and these Jedi and sticking them in a block of goo and being like, ha ha, you're stuck in our basement.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a quick aside, and this occurred to me after our discussion last week, but I have to ask you two this question. So, do you know the conversation that Obi-Wan has with Leia where they're talking about what it was like to be, to go be a Jedi? And he says, yeah, it's really upsetting when you're a little kid, they take you away and they take you to the monastery or the temple, and you end up becoming a Jedi. And he sort of says, I think I had a brother, I kind of remember like what my family looked like a little bit. Okay, so I was trying to process that in my mind, and it's all tied into the whole like the Jedi concept is kind of flawed, and that's probably why the whole prequel thing makes sense and the Clone Wars and everything. Okay, so here's my question to you guys. If the Jedi are scouring the galaxy looking for Force-sensitive children and they're taking them away...
Kidnapping them? Yeah.
We're not going to say kidnapping. Yeah. We're going to say taking them away to be trained. Why do they let them keep their last names?
What do you mean?
Why would it be, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn? Why wouldn't you be Brother Obi-Wan and you lose your last name so that you don't have that attachment so that you're not tempted to be part of that family?
But it could be a different name. It could be that they take them away and give them a different name, right?
Anakin Skywalker is Anakin Skywalker.
I guess, yeah.
And they don't. It's not like Luke when they're training.
But he becomes Darth Vader, though.
I know, but that's an honorific that Sith give, right? But it started sort of grinding my gears in my brain as I started thinking their whole mantra, which we know as we watch all of these different parts of Star Wars and read the books and play the games.
Well, it's like they call the brother and sister the Inquisitors. They take them away. Same idea, right?
Yeah, but
they do it. They do it correctly. The Jedi are lousy. That's why they lost.
But that's the whole point. Like, isn't it a fundamental flaw to let them keep part of their identity? If the whole idea is that you are taking them away to basically conscript them for the greater good, why let them keep any part of their identity? Why not either call them the second sister and second brother, or have them just have a first name like, Sting, Prince, and Madonna, and have them give them a lightsaber and say, you aren't that person anymore. Especially if they're taken away as children, they won't remember their names. Like, what's the point? Doesn't that seem so deeply flawed? And for a culture that they're trying to encourage, which is don't have attachments, don't be emotional, don't be connected, why would you let them keep their last names?
Can I remind you that it's just a movie, John?
No. This keeps me up at night, man. I'm telling you.
I go down the route.
Sorry, there's a little glimpse into my brain, Jaime, just so you know.
Tim went the outside of the universe route. I'm going to go in universe and say maybe it's the hubris of the Jedi that
I think that's exactly it. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think it's that they're so arrogant. They're like, don't have attachments. You who clearly have a family elsewhere, like, okay. Yeah, that was a weird one. I don't know. Again, that whole conversation where he's clearly sort of set the stage for some weird future story where it's like, I'm Anakin's brother, Bob Kenobi.
Yeah.
2 episodes left, so they're gonna have to make up some ground pretty soon here.
Well, the Empire will strike back in the next one, and then right. The Jedi will return in the sixth one. Right? That's how we're going here.
Yeah.
So the next one will involve a crushing defeat for the rebels because they were tracked back to a base, and then the one after that they'll regroup and they'll get some help from like some weird, cute little animals, and then they'll defeat them. Man, if I'm right, this will be the worst series in the history of Star Wars.
Yeah. A little tidbit here, a little sort of Easter egg. I don't know if you saw it or not, but when according to what I'm reading here, when Tala is told to come, and she's been found out, and she's got the little communicator thing in her hand, she puts it down in the same way that C-3PO does in A New Hope.
Oh, that's an extremely detailed detail.
Yeah. And then there was another one here too. You were right about the Jedi person.
Oh yeah, Terrace Nube, yeah.
And apparently the machine that they put Leia in is the same device that they use in Fallen Order.
Yeah. Fortress Inquisitorius is a prime location in that series or game. I guess there is a second game coming, but it's in that game.
Well, I haven't played the first game yet because you still have it at your house.
I'm not done with it yet.
Oh, you're not done. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Cool. So, are we going to move on to the Dorval, or are we gonna
do we want to do? Are we going to hold Ms. Marvel for? We'll do a 2-episode recap next week.
Have we got a recap of Marvel?
That was my
right?
recap because that's what we had sort of agreed on earlier this week.
Oh, you're going to do Ms. Marvel? Oh, yeah, because Jaime watched it. I haven't watched it. You go ahead. You guys can go ahead and do
it. I'll do the super high level one. I won't go too far into the details, mostly because it would, we've already done 2 recaps. But it is the story of Kamala Khan, who is a 16-year-old girl who lives in Jersey City, New Jersey, played, of course, by Iman Vellani, who is actually from Markham, Ontario. And she is, a girl with her head in the clouds. She's always thinking about, her art, and she's thinking about her friends, and she lives with her parents and her brother. They are Pakistani Muslim, and her brother is fairly devout. Her parents less so, but they are like most, immigrant families. They're a little more stringent, and so there's obviously we learned a little bit more about her culture and her Islamic upbringing, and they sort of establish her life at home, her life at school, and there's this sort of weird undertone of, well, she really wants to go to this event, which is Avengers Con, where they celebrate the Avengers. She hero worships Captain Marvel. She loves Captain Marvel. She wants to be like Captain Marvel. She wants to go to this Avengers Con and win this costume contest. And the whole thing is built around her and her best friend Bruno trying to figure out how they can get to this thing without her getting in trouble, because her parents won't let her go because they're very restrictive. And as part of this, she's trying to sort of find a way to bring her Pakistani culture to the Captain Marvel costume, and she ends up with this very special bracelet, and the bracelet ends up being something that she didn't anticipate. It had come in a box from her grandmother back in Pakistan, and when she puts it on at Avengers Con, she realizes it is actually a magical or some sort of specific device that gives her powers. A little bit of chaos ensues at Avengers Con, and in the end, she basically ends up having this sudden realization that while she's always dreamt of being a superhero, that now maybe she could actually be that. And so this sort of, it's a pretty fun, quick, light, super light, especially compared to having come off Moon Knight and Doctor Strange. This is your Marvel palette cleanser right here, folks. It is like super light, super fun. There's a mix of emojis, and animation is clearly aimed at a much younger audience, so not everybody will love that. I thought it was very fun and fresh. It's very, very reminiscent of the original comic by G. Willow Wilson and Canada's own Adrian Alphona. What's his name? Takashi Miyazawa was another Canadian artist who worked on the book, and it's very reminiscent of the book. It does go a kind of a different direction on the circumstances of her getting her powers. It seems so far like they have kind of changed what her powers are a little bit. So in the book, she basically gains her superpowers, and it gives her the ability to basically morph her body into different things. So she can stretch out her arm, kind of like Mr. Fantastic. She can change her body shape so she can mimic other people. In this case, they've kind of given her this MacGuffin of the bracelet, and the bracelet is a part of her costume in the books. But in this case, it's the bracelet that gives her the powers, and it acts a little more like a Green Lantern ring than her actually being able to morph herself. I get, for the purposes of a show like this, it's probably budgetarily a lot easier to do that stuff than have to, render Iman Vellani changing her body shape all the time and everything else. I don't think it's a terrible change, but it is different. But
do they call the wrist thing a bangle in the show?
Do they call? No, I think I don't know if they ever actually referred to it.
Because that's what that, you know, a lot of Indian women wear. Like, it's basically like some of them wear they're like gold and stuff like that. Like it's actually worth money.
Oh, yeah, no,
and
absolutely. I think
it.
it's meant to be like a, you know, like a piece of traditional Indian Pakistani.
Well, it's called the bangle.
Yeah.
Like they're called bangles when you wear them on your wrist.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's bigger than a bracelet by far. It's right. It's like a cuff, right? But yeah, it was fun. It was light. It was interesting. Obviously, it's a nice step forward as far as cultural diversity to have, a Muslim family. Jersey City is genuinely one of the most diverse cities in America. I think it might be one of the single most diverse places. So good to see representation, obviously. I could see why some people would love this series because it's fun and it's light and it's easy, and Aman Vellani is extremely charming. She's a really, really cute, fun, energetic person, and at the same time, I could see why people would not love it because it is, you know, it's not, you know, serious. It's pretty light. It's pretty, you know. It's very teen oriented, I would say. You know, there's YouTube references. There's, you know, a lot of, you know, emojis coming to the screen. She imagines her art, and her art comes to life. And, you know, so it's kind of, yeah, it's sort of straddling the line at times between comic book and animation and storytelling, obviously in real life. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. Again, if you like the book, you'll probably like the show, but I don't know if it's for everybody. I mean, what'd you think?
I liked it, and I know I'm definitely not the target audience. And I think, just like we mentioned, that Star Trek, there's so much of it available that you don't have to have, man, this has to apply to everyone. Otherwise, you're waiting 7 years before your next thing comes up, right? Like, there's not that big of a gap if you don't like this particular one. I liked it. I figured the style was kind of the early style of how it's presented felt like the Mitchells versus the Machines, which I've mentioned on this show, the Netflix animated film.
Yep.
And when I sort of thought about how this worked in my head, I said, if I were to explain it to somebody else who hadn't, you know, known anything about this character, just like I didn't know anything about this character, I like to describe it as, imagine Kim's Convenience plus Schitt's Creek plus Shang-Chi plus, you know, Pakistan, and you kind of have this show, right? Like her dad is, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's basically Appa. There is a convenience store, but granted, it's the friend who
Bruno,
lives above. Yeah, he lives above it. Her brother is, you know, Dan Levy, if he was, you know, Pakistani and Muslim.
Pakistani and a pious Muslim, yeah.
Instead of being Jewish, right? I'm like, oh, they are like the same guy. It's kind of scary. And then the Shang-Chi angle comes from the Bengal having a very clear sort of semi-ethnic origin, but also for her family a very particular thing, right? Like, her mom is like not that happy when she sees the Bengal, so it seems like she knows what's up, and I'm assuming there's a reason Grandma sent it along. There
is, and there's sort of an allusion in the show to her being like her grandma, to Kamala being like her grandma. Her mom makes a reference to, like, I know what it's like, these people who have their heads in the clouds, and it's sort of a double meaning to that one. Yeah,
and I feel like it sort of fits what, and I'm guessing they're going very much for like the Pakistani experience in America, because they're in Jersey. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it sort of fits a lot of the same beats that the, you know, immigrant family, but you're the first one to have been born here, right? So you've got that struggle with the parents, the elders, and their belief systems, and your Americanized belief system. Like, as an example, she just really wants to go to this Avengers Con and with her friend and cosplay as her favorite character. And her mom is like, you cannot go dressed as a slut, is what's stated there. And I'm like, what? Captain Marvel's outfit in the MCU is definitely not like that. To be fair, we do see other versions of comic accurate Captain Marvels that are probably more in line. But I'm like, she was wearing like a biker suit, like the kind that isn't meant to be sexy. The kind is meant to be you fall off of a motorcycle and you slide down the highway and you're fine, or better than you would be if it was skin. Like she is covered top to bottom. Yeah. But you can see the sort of like no. You got to do something that is more traditionally acceptable for them. But that was kind of an interesting take. We haven't seen a lot of that in the Marvel MCU yet.
Yeah, and again, it speaks to that diversity piece. So you're right. I mean, you went straight to Kim's Convenience. For me, it was Never Have I Ever, which is the Netflix series centered around a young, brown girl living in California, her culture clashing with her, her experience. She thinks of herself as just an average California girl, but her mom is like wanting her to embrace the traditional values. Similar in that vein, for sure. But yeah, it's funny because there are lines straight out of the original. I picked up my collected edition of Ms. Marvel this morning and was flipping through it because I was like, I hadn't reread it in years, but I was like, some of this seems really familiar. And I went through and yeah, they were lifting like straight from the book scenes, dialogue, lots of stuff from the original G. Willow Wilson, Adrian Alphona comics. And, yeah, it's people loved this book for that very reason, that it really kind of stretches how we think about, the primarily Caucasian, Marvel universe into some interesting places and does a good and respectable job of trying to sort of portray something else. And I think it's nice to have that, whether or not it'll be your favorite of all the Marvel shows. We were talking though, Jaime, you were saying how in this circumstance, the Disney Plus shows, they're kind of rolling them through. And if you don't like this one, another bus is coming. The one thing about the Ms. Marvel show versus some of the other shows is that we know already that she's going to be in the movie coming out next year called The Marvels, which is the essentially Captain Marvel 2, but it's also going to tie into Ms. Marvel. So I think there's pretty clear, you don't have to watch this, but if you like this character, maybe you'll go watch that. Or if you like Captain Marvel, you might like that. I think it was kind of their way of guarding against people being like, well, Captain Marvel 1 was not the best of all the Marvel MCU movies. Maybe I won't bother with Captain Marvel 2. Well, if you introduce this fun new character, maybe it's enticing a different audience, right?
Yeah. And I do think it's probably a good balance for them for hedging on that, as well as I can completely see a very quick recap of her appearance in the movie. So if you don't watch this show, you'll probably get the gist of, she's a big fan of Captain Marvel. She has her own powers. It's called Ms. Marvel. Got it. Right.
Yep.
You can sort of move on. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there'll be some way to recap that in the movie. They will, I'm your biggest fan. I love you or whatever. I do wonder as I was watching this one, I wonder if in the final episode or a final episode we'll get that sort of lead into that movie where, perhaps they meet or there's somebody who's like, let me introduce you to my friend, or in some sort of connection. Right.
Yeah.
And there is, for people who, again, are MCU lovers and spotters, there's a post-credit scene. So stay tuned, kids. There's, for the first time in a while, a post-credit scene in a first episode of an MCU Disney Plus show that ties into Spider-Man No Way Home. So, because the characters that are in that scene, one of those characters is in No Way Home. We'll let Tim watch that before we get too far into that one.
All right.
Do you want to do The Boys? We did. We all watched the first 3 something else episodes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow is right. Wow covers it.
That guy is so like, what do you do? What do you do when the most dangerous guy on the planet loses his?
Oh, can we please start with episode 1 though? I mean, the Homelander stuff is great, and he's fantastic. But oh my god, that first episode! Oh my god. There's a scene, again, we're not going to get into spoilers, we're not going to go further, but there is a scene in that first episode that is maybe the most over-the-top thing I've ever seen on a television show.
Can you give us a recap? It's been a while since I've seen it.
That would be the part where there is a character named the Termite who can shrink and grow himself like the Atom.
Oh yes, right. That was like rated triple R.
And that scene,
that was painful to watch. Never mind what happened.
My good God, that scene. I was both like aghast and laughing hysterically. That was one of the most over the top, through the roof, around the corner scenes I've ever seen on television in my entire life. And I've watched a lot of stuff. That is one of the most bonkers things I've ever seen. And immediately, as Jaime pointed out on our Slack channel, was immediately a meme going around. It was unbelievable, that scene. But it was part of an unbelievable episode and continuing the boys just pushing the envelope. Now, in fairness, I've read the books, and the books are also over the top. But we're talking about a very niche audience for this book. It was, it's not even a super mainstream. It's certainly gained its popularity as the shows come on, and they've collected it and everything else. It's gained a strong cult following. But to do it in live action and that spectacularly graphic fashion was something else. And then to continue that through the first 3 episodes that they dropped on its premiere day, just scene after scene where it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm with superheroes. You're just cringing your way through so many scenes, watching from behind your fingers as you just like, oh, this is so unbelievably awkward and painful and gross. The scene in the 3rd episode where Homelander has clearly gone completely off the deep end and forces one of his teammates to commit a very unpleasant act involving his supper is, oh my God, he's praying. It's so unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Oh, this show is so good. They are just going for it in a way that I love. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool, but I'm sure it'll shock a lot of people too.
Yeah,
it does. And the mirror it holds up to Western and most likely American society in particular, with the Vought News, the reality, heavy air quotes, reality TV show competition for the 7 team members, and just a whole bunch of how even just something simple that it ends that 3rd episode with, a particular hashtag with, yep, that's definitely a pre-planned thing that people do. Here's the hashtag we're going to get trending for the latest thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it is. It's and the comic was the same way. It really is meant to be, in a world of reality television, in a world of YouTube, in a world of, influencers and all these things, add in superhero people. And what do you get? And it just becomes this bacchanal of debauchery. It's just, it's so good.
And the hit statistics or the points that on on the networks and stuff that excuses the behaviors of these incredibly horrible people.
Yeah. I just want to sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it's like having a leader of the largest country in the world,
a reality TV show,
just justifying his horrible behavior because he's got good stats.
Yeah,
right?
And getting into office because he was a reality TV show host, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I just very quickly want to read you a text that I got from a close friend of mine. He said, "Make sure you watch the first episode of The Boys with your family. Maybe invite the minister from the church down the road over too. Oh, and bring lots of old people, especially ones with heart conditions and weak stomachs. Yes, that will do nicely." I was like, "Yep, okay, sounds good." Mm-hmm. This was before I had a chance to watch it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I get it now. Yeah." Such a good show. Can't wait to see where they take the rest of this.
Yeah, definitely. And just the graphics. I mean, like the the slicing people in half and with their eyes and all that kind of stuff. Just like the like I think I've mentioned before, when you see somebody get shot in a Quentin Tarantino movie, you don't actually see them getting shot.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you see them get lasered, and like cars getting lasered in half, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of these guys lose their temper, or just like sneeze and
and bad
death
things
and destruction.
happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, actually, literally sneeze.
Literally sneeze and
right?
something bad happens. Oh yeah, maybe the worst thing.
Yeah.
No, it's it's one of those things. As soon as you sit down and watch it, I was just like, oh, I can't believe they dropped 3 episodes at once. I gotta try and get through it this week because I want to talk about it with the guys. And I sat down and I started watching. I'm like, oh, never mind. This is awesome, and I'm gonna sit here and watch this till as long as it takes. It's so good.
Did you watch all 3 like right in a row, or did you take a break?
I watched one and then did some stuff, and then came back and watched the last 2. I ended up staying up until much later than I should have one night this week, just because I really wanted to see what was going to happen.
Well, I watched one, middle of last week, and then took a break for a couple of days.
Clean yourself up.
Not intentionally. I did other things. Well, as I mentioned before, it's a busy week for me and Jaime because we've got a lot of content to consume, right? And then I came back and I can't remember. I think I watched the next 2 right, one after the other. But just to get them done because another episode's coming on Friday, right? So or tomorrow as we record. Yep. I have a dog here staring at me. Wagging his
What
tail.
is it, Mr. Mac?
Yeah. All right. So should we move to our watch list?
Yeah, let's do that.
Take care of his business.
So mine is something that I didn't know. The Terminator 2 bullet effects on the T-1000, the liquid metal T-1000, weren't CGI, or at least not all of them were. I was pretty impressed to find out that they had a practical solution for that. And if you had asked me over these past, 30 odd years, I would have definitely told you, oh yeah, that was probably CGI to make the explosion appear. And then they probably just glued the things on after the fact when he's running around already damaged.
So the thing about that is that there was a movie before that, The Abyss, right? The Abyss was the first time that they actually had a sort of morphing 3D object that was, rendered in not real time. It took days and days and days to render these scenes. But the big technology at the time that Terminator came out was morphing. I don't know if you remember going from one photo to another. Mm-hmm. That's what sort of was the thing at that, motion capture, camera work, computer controlled motion capture and camera work was Star Wars, right? That came out of that. But the whole Terminator 2 thing was the whole thing about morphing from one shape to another. That was sort of the latest thing in image rendering at that time, right? So we had like apps on our Macs at home. Like I've have videos I think I have pictures of Jonathan and his kids and morphing from one age to another. That was the thing at the time. So yeah, CGI wasn't there yet, Jaime, is what I'm saying. Like in terms of technology, right?
Yeah,
the big movie that put CGI on the map was Jurassic Park with the T-Rex.
Yeah. No, I get that, and they definitely used practical means where they didn't need CGI, like using twins for Linda Hamilton's character because she has a twin. Using twins for the police officer or sheriff or deputy or something who. When the T-1000 comes from the floor and maybe he's a guard or something. I forget what his role is. He's like a law enforcement kind of guy, and he goes to get a cup of coffee from the machine. He's like, "Oh, I'm a winner," and then he gets stabbed by the 1000. That was just twins that they did. So,
right, okay,
yeah, where they have them face to face. Yeah.
Are the bullet effects, are they actually like stop motion kind of animations? Is that what they're saying? Or?
No, and I would have thought, it's CGI. That was like the big thing that they did, and they came up with a practical effect where they had like these are like almost like exploding, flowers, in such a way where they've got a little almost like a squib rigged underneath some pre-scored clothing, right? So his police officer uniform, and so when they pull a pin, it presses out this like flower, metallic flower looking thing that causes the bullet hole to appear, the impact, which is pretty dang cool. And again, it was definitely a mix of CGI and practical effects, and If you'd asked me, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's obviously CGI, and it was not. I was impressed to see that there was a practical effect there.
Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my pick for this week is something I'm doing tomorrow. We're going to go see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the live stage performance of the, I guess for lack of a better term, sequel to the Harry Potter series. It is here playing here in Toronto. It just opened a few weeks ago, and this was my Christmas gift to my family this year. I bought all of us some nice seats to go see this live performance. It is the shortened version. The one that they originally showed in London and then originally on Broadway was 2 parts, and it was almost 7 hours, and it was spread over 2 performances. You had to go watch like one and then go have some lunch and then come back and watch another one. This is the shortened version, which is I think 3.5 hours. But it's supposed to be an unbelievable spectacle, and apparently I spoke with a friend of mine who actually saw it in New York when the original was on, and she said somebody in the audience stood up at one point and said, "It's official, we're all muggles and magic is real." That's how immersive this thing felt. So I'm really curious. I mean, I'm not like the world's biggest Harry Potter fan. I very much enjoyed the books. I do have my reservations about obviously J.K. Rowling and her thoughts and beliefs, but I certainly can give her credit for being a very creative person. And I'm curious to see this performance and to see it live and to see it come to life in this way. I'm really curious to see this in person. So I'll report back next week and let you know what this local Toronto performance of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is like. Cool.
All right. Well, I have a pick that there's actually a tweet that I just read online as we were recording. A friend of mine posted this, and it says, "When I was a kid, I literally thought that this little piggy went to market meant it went shopping."
Yeah, I've seen that.
and I never made the connection myself till just as I was reading this tweet. Like, oh my God. I always thought that the little piggy was just going to go get some, veggies and some bread and whoops.
No, I think it was a different type of market for that piggy. But it is a funny one when you put it in the context of playing with your fingers and toes, where you're like, so wait, one of my fingers is going to the slaughterhouse?
Can it get severed? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, before my dog explodes, let's wrap up. So that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you. Where would they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News. And don't forget to tune in to the Canadian Health Information Podcast, coming back with new episodes next week.
Hi. With new hosts.
New host named Avis Favreau on the English episodes and a new host named Elia Nyang on the French episodes. It's going to be good.
There you go. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right. My name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. Until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
I literally now the dog's making me think I have to go and take care of nature. So
you got Jedi mind tricked by a dog, man.
I got Jedi mind tricked by a dog. So let's call it, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Sounds good.
Okay,
bye. See you guys later. Bye.